Whenever an application running on a computer wants to send or receive data over the internet or over a network, it needs the help of protocol softwares. Protocols are set of rules used to govern transmission of data over a network, and these protocols exist primarily in the form of softwares, and these softwares are installed on the user's computer. So it is when you install the operating system on your computer, at that point in time these protocol softwares are also installed on your computer. So these protocols are part of the operating system. In fact, the part of the operating system which is related to these protocols is categorically called the network operating system. So network operating system is part of the operating system on your computer, and it is inside the network operating system that these protocols exist in the form of softwares, and these are installed on your computer when you install the operating system. Protocols can be categorized based on their functionality to belong to the following layers. Protocols can belong to the application layer, the transport layer, the network layer, the data link layer, or the physical layer. Now, the most popular set of protocols that are used when transmitting data over the internet are collectively called the TCP IP protocol suite. So notice I am using the word collectively. That means that within the TCP IP protocol suite there are many protocols, and these protocols are used for transmitting data over the internet. Out of the 5 categories of protocols that we just discussed, the TCP IP protocol suite only has protocols that belong to the following layers: application layer, transport layer, and the network layer. Remember, we discussed that there are 5 layers as such. There is the application layer, the transport layer, the network layer, the data link layer, and the physical layer. However, protocols that are part of the TCP IP protocol suite only belong to the application layer, the transport layer, and the network layer. A few examples of protocols that belong to these layers in the TCP IP protocol suite are the HTTP protocol, the DNS protocol, the FTP protocol, the SMTP protocol, and the POP protocol that are part of the application layer. In fact, this is called the POP3 protocol. So this is the POP3 protocol. Okay. In the transport layer, we have TCP, UDP, SCTP. Now we are only going to be studying TCP in more detail. In the network layer, we have IP, IGMP, ICMP, ARP, and there are many more. I've just mentioned a few examples. But from the network layer, we are going to be primarily studying IP protocol in more detail. Okay, let's imagine a scenario. Imagine that computer A has to download a web page from this web server which is lying on the internet. Now let us understand a few things first. At this point, there may be other applications on computer A. On computer A, there might be other applications which are sending and receiving data from the internet. For example, there could be an email application running on this computer that is downloading emails from an email server on the internet, right? So an email application might be busy downloading emails right now when this web browser is trying to download a web page from this web server, right? So there are other applications that are using the internet connection also. Now what you should understand, by the way, is that these applications are running on the computer as processes, right? And I've already uploaded a video on programs and processes, so you can go through that video to understand what a process is. But at this point in time, there are several processes, or there may be several processes running on the computer, and some of those processes might be using the internet to send data or to receive data. Okay, so now when these applications send and receive data on the internet, then there must be a port number that should be assigned to them, so that when data is received, for example, by the computer, for example computer A in this case, when data is received by computer A in this case, then that data must have a port number with it, right? A port number, and this port number is going to be used to identify the process that this data is meant for. Remember, there are several processes running on this computer which might be using the internet. So when the data is received, data has a port number, and this port number is used to identify which one of these processes is this received data meant for. Okay, so let's go back to our example. In our example, we have a web browser, right? We have a web browser, and the user is using this web browser, and he wants to download a web page from the internet from this web server. Now the user types the URL into the web browser. Let's say the user types something like www.cnn.com, right? And this let this be CNN's web server, right? So when the user types www.cnn.com, the web browser knows that this web page is located at a remote site. It's located somewhere on the internet. So this web page is going to have to be downloaded from the internet. So the web browser is going to need the help of a protocol software, so that this web browser can send the request message across the internet to this web server, right? So the web browser is going to need the help of protocol software. So the web browser is going to use the HTTP protocol that is installed on computer A. So that is the basic rule. Whenever an application needs to transmit data over the internet or over a network, then it takes the help of some protocol in the application layer. Let's quickly do another example. So for example, there is another application, the email application, which is running on computer A. Now the email application wants to send out an email. If it wants to send out an email, it is going to use the SMTP protocol that belongs to the application layer. Now if the same email application wants to receive or download email messages from the internet, then this email application is going to use the POP or POP3 protocol that belongs to the application layer. So the key concept is that any application that wants to send or receive data over the internet or over a network will use some application layer protocol, and it is expected in the exam that you know the corresponding application layer protocol that an application is going to use. So for a web browser, the web browser uses HTTP or it uses HTTPS. The email application uses, for example, SMTP or POP or POP3. So it is expected that you can tell the corresponding protocol when an application is given. Okay, so let's go back to our original example, and in this example we had the web browser, right? And we were trying to download a web page from the web server on the internet. So the HTTP protocol is going to be used by our web browser, and this web browser and this HTTP protocol on the client computer, I call computer A the client computer because this is the computer sending the request to the server. So the HTTP protocol on the client computer is going to prepare a request in a format that can be understood by the HTTP protocol running on the server computer. So there is going to be HTTP protocol running on the server computer also, and there is going to be HTTP protocol running on, let me rewrite that, there is going to be HTTP protocol running on computer A also. So there is going to be HTTP protocol running on the computer side, which is going to create a request, right, in a format that is going to be understood by the HTTP protocol that is running on the server side. Okay, so this prepares the request, this HTTP protocol prepares the request, and this HTTP protocol on the server side is able to read and understand that request. So there is a key concept here. This HTTP protocol has two versions. One of those versions is the client side version. This is the HTTP client side version on computer A, and this HTTP running here is the HTTP server side version, right? So this server side version by nature is very different from this client side HTTP, because the client side HTTP is supposed to formulate or create requests, and this HTTP server side software is supposed to process those requests and understand those requests. So they are doing different things in their nature.